Have you ever wondered how many British nationals are fighting for Israel in Gaza or living on illegal settlements in the West Bank? And what, if anything, is the British government doing to stop them? These are questions that I've been asking for months to the UK Foreign Office, run by our former Prime Minister, Lord David Cameron. In the past, ministers have claimed not to hold this information when they've been questioned about it in Parliament. But the information I've now received suggests that Parliament was misled. Back in November, I made a Freedom of Information request to the Foreign Office, asking for any data they held on the number of Brits fighting in the IDF or living on illegal settlements. FOI requests, as they're called, should normally be answered within a month, but this one was dragging on far longer. So I went to Britain's transparency watchdog, the Information Commissioner, and they had to threaten to take the Foreign Office to the High Court and hold it in contempt before it eventually answered. Now it turns out that the Foreign Office does actually have at least a rough idea of how many British nationals fall into these categories. It was told by Israel's Foreign Ministry that back in September 2023, so a month before the war in Gaza started, that there were 80 British nationals serving in the IDF as lone soldiers, which means they don't have parents in Israel and they've gone out there specifically to join the army. The Foreign Office pointed out that this isn't the total number of Brits in the IDF. The true figure is likely far higher, because there are also dual nationals who are serving there. In fact, one British IDF soldier, Sam Sank, told the Times newspaper that there were hundreds, if not thousands, of others like him fighting in the IDF. But the fact the Foreign Office has admitted to knowing there are at least 80 British nationals in this category, I think is hugely significant. Let's not forget, this is a country and an army that's under investigation at the International Court of Justice, the World Court, for genocide in Gaza. The British government might not agree with that charge, but it has itself accused Israel of withholding sufficient food and water from the Palestinians in Gaza. Effectively, it's starving them. And we've seen how worried the British government is about that, because it started to drop aid from the air into Gaza because Israel simply isn't allowing enough in. So we have a situation where the Foreign Office knows 80 British nationals are involved in this military operation in some capacity.
We're here to stay, we're not going anywhere.
The question is then, well, what's it going to do about it? Is it going to arrest them when they return and question them to find out just how heavily involved in those operations they were?
And every single house inside of Gaza, this is what I say, every single, unbelievable. 2 or 3 doors stuffed with the most exotic laundry that you can imagine. These naughty Gazans.
The police could look for evidence on their social media accounts and their devices to see if they've been involved in specific war crimes, such as abusing Palestinian prisoners of war. But there's a more general point as well, of course. If the Genocide Convention is invoked, then just serving in the Israeli military at all, while it committed a genocide, could be sufficient grounds in and of itself for prosecution. The UK government has a pretty bad record though in this regard. Something I've looked at particularly because I wrote a book about it is how the UK tackles the problem of mercenaries, which in some respects, British people who go and fight in a foreign army like Israel could be described as such. The only law on the statute books is the Foreign Enlistment Act of 1870, which when it was last debated in Parliament in the 1970s, amid a scandal involving British mercenaries who'd committed a massacre in the Congo, it was found that no one had ever actually been convicted under this law, nor would they be. The Prime Minister back then was Labour's Harold Wilson, but even he was at pains to acknowledge concerns from Margaret Thatcher that many of her constituents from Finchley had recently gone out to fight for Israel, and he felt that was something that would be perfectly understandable in Parliament. So no action was taken to beef up that law, and the UK also lobbied secretly at the United Nations to water down a proposed ban on mercenaries. So the UK has a pretty bad record on that front, and I doubt it would start going after British IDF members on the grounds that they were mercenaries. But many others have argued that it should use counter-terrorism legislation. This is because there does seem to be a double standard here, something that Baroness Saïda Vazi, a former Conservative cabinet minister, has herself pointed out. She's even gone as far as saying that this loophole only exists in order to allow British nationals to fight in the IDF. As someone who's worked at the heart of government, she would be in a position to know. For us as outsiders, what we can see is that if young British Muslims go off to fight for Palestinian armed groups, they would be very quickly stopped at the airport, prosecuted under terrorism legislation, and probably end up in jail. But when young British Jews go out to fight for Israel, even though its army is almost permanently engaged in violations of international law, by virtue of its illegal occupations of the West Bank, East Jerusalem, the Golan Heights, and now the siege that it's put around Gaza, they seem to get away with it. There also seems to be no action taken when parents take their children out to go and live on these illegal settlements in the West Bank. And it's hugely significant that the Foreign Office has now admitted it holds records on approximately 20 to 30 British nationals living on those settlements. This then begs the question, what's the Foreign Office going to do about it? Because last month, David Cameron did finally put sanctions on 4 what he called extremist Israeli settlers who were involved in violent attacks on Palestinians. His department then declined to clarify when asked whether those 4 individuals were British passport holders, and so it's unclear whether the travel ban or asset freeze will really have an impact on them. But it could on those 20 to 30 British nationals that the Foreign Office knows are living out there. Now, even if they haven't personally been involved in a violent act against a Palestinian, the settlements on which they live are built on violent conquest and a military occupation which the UK government quite rightly recognises is illegal under international law. Again, just like the number of Brits serving the IDF, those 20 to 30 UK nationals living on the illegal settlements is very likely a vast underestimate. There are 700,000 Israeli settlers in total, so it's hard to believe that just 20 to 30 of them come from Britain. Of course, many will come from places like the US. But now the Foreign Office has admitted to holding at least some records, will they come under real pressure to take action and also do a much wider investigation into the total number? By allowing British citizens to fight in the IDF or live on illegal settlements, these are just 2 ways that the UK government is complicit in what Israel is doing to the Palestinians. At Declassified, we've been uncovering many other forms of complicity, particularly the arms exports of crucial components for the Israeli war machine as it's besieging Gaza. If you value the investigative journalism that we do at Declassified, please subscribe to our YouTube channel to help this video reach a wider audience. You can also become a supporter of Declassified from as little as £3 per month. There are details on our website, or you can make a one-off donation using the Super Thanks button below. Thanks for watching.